Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Thank you for joining me again. So in this video we're going to continue with the salary program that we wrote, and here we're going to see how to anticipate errors and how to handle these errors. So remember we had sold our application to another company and we're enjoying the money until they called us that there's something wrong with our application. So let's run and see what really happened with our application. So it's a Python get started, and instead of entering a number, someone entered the wait 10 hours, and that gave us the application an error. It crashed and they called us, and now we are back. We're trying to investigate what happened to this application. So as you can see, this application has given an error, and an error that's given when an application is running is called an exception. I'll just type it here. So this is an exception. So what type of exception is it? We have to, or what type of error is it? It's the same thing, what type of error or exception, but exception is just more exact because we're talking about an error that occurred while the application was running. So what type of exception occurred? We have to look at, we just go to the bottom and we look at this here. It's called value error, and we have some information about what really happened here. It says it could not convert a string into a float. And which string is it? It's the 10, and we see that it's this 10 that we typed right here. And so where do we find this in the program? So here we are given the line of the program that caused this error. We can see that it's float input enter hours, and we can see this in our program. So it also gives us the line number for getting started, line number 3. So what we're doing here is what's called debugging the program, because this is our bug in the program and we are trying to solve it. So what we're really doing is debugging it. So we can go to our program and look at line number 3, which is the line that the program gives us here. And we can also look at the exact line of code, which is this one, and this one here. So what we're trying to do is to convert input gives us a string, and we're trying to convert this string into a float. But now this kind of string that we're trying to convert is 10. We can convert a string such as 1 to 3.0 because these are actually numbers, so they're easy to convert to floats or integers. We can convert 500, anything that's written as a number, we can convert it into a float. But things like this, 1, we can't convert them to numbers because Python doesn't know how to deal with this. Even 2, Python doesn't know how to deal with this, so we can't convert them to numbers. Instead, it's going to give us this error, value error. So how can we fix this exception? So first, let me go back into Python. I just showed the vocabulary that Python has. So I'll type help again, keywords. So this is our limited vocabulary that we're looking at. So in the previous video, we looked at the Boolean true and false and true. In this video, we're going to cover this except and try. So that will be 4 out of the 35 vocabulary already. So we are doing pretty good. Okay, so let's go back to fixing the error. So first, let me just make the program crash again so that we can see the exception that we had. So the exception that we have is value error, and this is caused in line number 3, which is this line here, and where we're trying, and in this line, basically, where we're trying to convert a string into a float, and the problem here is that we can't convert a 10 to a float. So, and let me go back to the program. So how do we fix this? So the first thing is we have to break this apart. So I'll just type num hours is equals to float num hours. So what I've done doesn't really fix the problem, but it allows us to fix the problem now. So let me do this. You see, it will still cause the same error. And now it's just moved to line number 5 where I've put this float. So it's still the same error. And now to fix this error, we have to use the try and except. So I'll explain to you how the try and except next. So the way you write the syntax is try. And you have to indent the code for this try block so that it knows which code it has to try. And then at the end you've put except, and what exception are you anticipating? In this case, we're anticipating value error, so we put value error here. And what we want to do, so you see it also indents this block, so this is the code that it will have to run if this error occurs. So here we'll just say print, oops, that wasn't a number. Please try again. So now what we're doing now is that we've put this try and except. So what we put under the try will run normally, just the normal way. And if an error occurs, then it's going to look at the exception. So short, we just say except. And what kind of exception are we anticipating? We're anticipating value error. So if an exception such as value error occurs, then it's going to print this. Oops, that wasn't a number. Please try again. So let's try our program now. And let's type 10. And you see that now it says that wasn't a number. Please try again. So now what has happened is that it didn't run this program here. I tried to convert to a number and this didn't work. It caused an error, therefore it prints this, that wasn't a number. And after that it continues to print the name and to print the salary. So as you can see, it's printed something that's really it's printed the error, that wasn't a number, but it has also printed the name, mark, and the salary. So the salary is 10, 10, 10, 10. So as you remember, when you multiply a string with a number, it will just repeat the number several times. So we don't want this to occur, so we'll just move everything into the try block so everything has to be indented so that it can show that it belongs to the try block. So now I've put everything under the try block, and now if an error occurs in the try block, it's just going to go to the exception. So let me try to run this again, and I'll enter 10. So it will just print that wasn't a number. Please try again. But there's nothing below to run, so that's the only thing that will be printed. And so here we see that now we have a good error message for our users, and they can now see what the mistake they made and they can correct themselves, so we can go back on our vacation and enjoy. So now let's just cover one more thing. So here you see that this value error is the only thing that's being captured by this exception. So if we have another exception that's not value error, for example, let me divide something by 0. I'll just say this is average, I'll divide it by 0. So this is deliberately just to cause an error. And let me run this. And here I'll just enter 10, what our program expects. And when I do this, you see that we have another exception. So you have to get used to reading these exceptions. So you go at the bottom, you see the error. It says 0 division error. And it gives us some information here. We divided by 0. And it gives us the line where we divide by 0, which is line number 12. So now our debugging skills are improving. We know how to find our error and how to fix it. So here I have a division by 0 error. And I can also anticipate this in the program. So I can just copy this division by 0. And I can put another except and put division by 0. And I'll put something to print. And I'll just say Python doesn't output infinity. So from our math, we know that when you divide by 0, something gets to undefined or close to infinity. So Python doesn't do that. It just gives us the error. So I'll do that. So now let me run the program. And you see that it handles this error now. It handles this error, the average 1.0, and it also gives us what the problem was. Oops, Python doesn't output undefined. So this is just the error that we entered here. So there we go. We know how to handle errors and everything. So before we close this video, let me just point out one thing. So here, if you remember, I put this deliberately just to cause an error. And when I come to look at this code sometime later, I'll be surprised that why did I do that? Why did I put a 1/0 here? So as you know, in normal everyday life, if you expect that you're going to forget something, you usually put a note for yourself. So here in Python, we can also put a note for ourselves so that in future we're really not surprised about why we did this dumb thing, dividing something with a 0. So to put a note, they're just code comments. You put a £, and then you can type your note, what you're doing. So here I'll say, I'll just say causing an error. And I'll just say intentionally causing an error. So in future, when I see this and I look at 1/0 and I was like, what am I trying to do? I can look at this note or the comment and I can see it says intentionally causing an error. So this is a good thing, a good note to our future self, so that we're not spooked when we see this mistake. So we can put a comment anywhere. You can put it at the bottom. You can put it on top. Or you can put it on the side. But it can, if you put it at the beginning, then everything will be a comment. So that's how comments work. We put a comment for our future self. And if not that, the other thing that we can do is when we just want to disable some line of code, we can also put a comment. So I'll leave the comment here on the side of this division by 0. So let's say now I don't want to run this line of code anymore. I can also just put a comment here and it will disable that. So the Python interpreter will actually skip anything that's in a comment. It won't do anything with that. So comments are just meant for us humans to later on in the future to understand what we're trying to do, or if someone looked at your program so that they can understand what you're trying to do. Sometimes you become a genius when you're programming such that your future self won't understand what you're trying to do. So, and for that matter, anyone else might might have trouble to understand what you are doing in that moment when you are a super genius. So you put a comment to guide someone. So for example, one other comment I could put, imagine that this was a very complicated calculation. I could put a comment on top, on the side, or at the bottom just to explain what I'm trying to do here. So I'd say calculating the salary. But here it's pretty obvious, so the comment is not needed. So we usually put the comments where it's really needed. It's not obvious what you're trying to do. You are super genius in that moment, or you're doing something really dumb and you need an explanation when you look at it in future. So that's how we use comments. They're good to know and to keep in mind. That wraps this video, and thank you for joining me. If you're enjoying this tutorial series, remember to subscribe and to turn on the bell notification. Here what we're just doing is an introduction, so it's not properly formatted, but it just runs. But in the next video, we'll see now how to write functions, how to organize our code, and we'll start from the next video writing professional code.